Okay, I have this story about Democrat David Cicilline, and I want you to see what's going on here. When our forefathers or the advent of this country was made, none of this was up to the decisions of these local politicians, federal politicians, we ever want to call them, to decide which amendments of the Constitution would be suspended. But apparently, we the people have let our government get so out of control, and that was the purpose of the Constitution, was to prevent the government from getting out of control. The separation of states, everything you read about it was to keep the government from getting too powerful and basically suspending any of the amendments within the Constitution. But apparently that's not happening, and it's getting worse every day, because as we see what's happened over the last few years, all our rights are being eroded by the very government that's not supposed to get too powerful, but it is. And we honestly have to start doing things. When I have a guy like this Republican David Cicilline saying what he just said, I want to ask some questions on the other things that they've taken away from us, like where does it end? I'm just curious, but listen to what he says. This is what he says about the Second Amendment.
So spare me the bullshit about constitutional rights. The gentleman.
Spare me the bullshit about constitutional rights. Apparently, this is what the Democrats and the Rhino Republicans believe in general, because I want to go over a litany of constitutional rights that we have, and is this what he says about all of them? Because apparently each and every constitutional right we have is being attacked by the left and the Rhino Republicans. First, I want to hit you with the Second Amendment, okay, because this is what they're going after. And right here, plain as day, it says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So when you read that, it says shall not be infringed. It doesn't say if one person is shot, if 50 people are shot, if 1,000 people are shot, if 20,000 people are shot, if 200 kids are killed. Unfortunately, it doesn't say then you can infringe upon our constitutional right. It doesn't say that. So I don't know what this Democrat representative is talking about when he says spare me the bullshit about our constitutional rights. This should have you furious. People, we're supposed to live in a free country, and you have to stop letting these Democrats and these Rhino Republicans shame you into giving up your rights. For the last couple of years, they've tried to shame you into giving up what are our God-given rights, and it's not going to happen. When will you stand up and say enough is enough? I like to ask Democrat David Cicilline, what part of the Constitution doesn't he understand? The role of the Constitution within the U.S. government is to state the authorities as well as the limitations that the people have defined for their governments. We are supposed to be limiting you, not you limiting us. And I want to show you this right here, David Cicilline. Where does it end? Right now, many Americans have had their first Constitution, their first amendment revoked by all these so-called social media companies that have worked with the government. Of course, that's unconstitutional. So should we say shit on the Constitution for that also? The First Amendment, religion of the press, religion and freedom of the press, religion and freedom of speech. Yet, we have had Project Veritas spied on, and we'll get to another amendment that covers that. They're being illegally spied on. Americans are having their freedom of speech revoked by social media companies, as I said, that are working with the government to take our free speech away. So, Mr. Cicilline, should we also say, forget about that? Should we just disregard that as well? Because you like to use the term that Americans are using disinformation, when much of that disinformation over and over and over is proven correct down the line. But I don't hear you talking about that. I remember when you said that our president of the United States was not spied on, but he was, and all those people had been removed as they worked with the government to remove them from social media. When we talked about Kyle Rittenhouse was correct, but yeah, we were all removed for that also. When we talked about how the Wuhan lab was supplying the latest pandemic, we know that's pretty close to accurate, yet our First Amendment right has been removed in regards to that. When we talked about how 2020 was taken from the people during the elections, yet we've been proven over and over, we're so close that we know that so much of what we said was true because we have 2,000 mules. We have now where CNN is even coming out and saying that the machines can be hacked. So much of what we said was true, and they removed our First Amendment right for that. I could go on and on and on, but many of you understand what I'm saying. Right now, they're trying to take our Second Amendment away. The Fourth Amendment, which protects us against unreasonable search and seizure, yet we find out more and more that the government, who is also working with these social media companies to spy on us, they spied on the President of the United States. They spied on people that worked for him. We know that now, and when we talked about it, we went back to the First Amendment where that was removed also. Mr. David Cicilline, should we also forget about that freedom that we have, that God-given right that was given to us by God? Should we forget about it? We have the Eighth Amendment, sir. The Eighth Amendment, protection against cruel and unusual punishment. Eighth Amendment, protection against excessive bail and fines. Yet we have people who are in the MAGA movement, whether you want to say they're guilty or not, they haven't gone to trial yet, but they're being kept in prisons. They have not been given bail. The people from January 6th to this date. Why? Why? Because you again feel like, forget that, we shouldn't care about them? We had people burning down cities, destroying whole states, yet nothing was done to them. But we have the January 6th prisoners who are having cruel and unusual punishment applied to them by the government of the United States, and people like you, David Cicilline, who say, damn the Constitution, damn the amendments. Where does it end? Where does it end? Because if it was up to you, none of us would have the rights that have been granted to us by God, because you don't respect the Constitution. You're a tyrant, along with everyone else in the Democrat Party, and of course the Rhino Republicans. None of you care about the Constitution anymore, because as I just went over this stuff, I showed you that each and every one of these rights are being taken from us, and you don't care, because you say, damn the amendments, nobody cares. That's the way you feel. That's what the American people have to see. People, you have to start fighting back against these tyrants, because eventually they've already taken away the first. They're trying to take away the second. They've taken away the eighth. They're going after the fourth. When will you say enough is enough? When will we stand up and say the government has become too powerful? The purpose of the Constitution and the amendments within the Constitution are exactly the reason that we have them, because David Cicilline says this.
Spare me the bullshit about constitutional rights.
Spare me the bullshit against constitutional rights. David Cicilline doesn't care about the American people and the rights granted to us by God. You heard him. Now, what will you do to stop allowing these tyrants to say stuff like this and actually do things about it? Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm fed up. I've had enough. And people, we need to get strong again and take control of our government, because they are way, way, way out of control.